So let's just give people a chance to get logged in and get the link.
Perfect. Thanks, Courtney.
Everything looks like it's working this time.
All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to the Handmade Beauty Box Google Hangout. Try 2 for the day. Thanks for your patience as we worked out some technical difficulties. I'm so excited for that little break, though, because, boy, the questions have been rolling in. So I'm so excited to get to all your questions during this demonstration and also after the demonstration. So right now, we're going to go over a little bit about what came in your Handmade Beauty Box this month. This month's Handmade Beauty Box is a fantastic project. It's a bath fizzy project. And for those of you that have never used a bath fizzy, you drop these into the tub. They kind of make an effervescent, wonderful swirling, wonderful whizzing bath fizzy that makes your bath smell amazing. Also, you can add water softening agents to it. You can add detoxifying agents, and we're going to talk about that later. For your particular project this month, we did a basic bath fizzy recipe, which is baking soda and citric acid. And when you opened your box, I bet some of you were kind of surprised to get that common kitchen staple of baking soda and thought, why are they sending me baking soda? I have baking soda. Well, because Handmade Beauty Box is meant to be a complete DIY surprise kit, so you don't have to go running out to the store to get ingredients. We want you to have that instant gratification of being able to make everything right then and there. So you got baking soda, you got citric acid, which are the 2 ingredients that are needed to make your bath fizzy fizz. You also got a skin-safe fragrance oil, lavender and herb fragrance oil. Remember, if you're ever making this project again, I want you to make sure you're only using skin-safe fragrance oils, no potpourri, no candle fragrances, because you don't want anything that might cause skin irritation. You also got some witch hazel. Witch hazel is an plant extract that's mixed with alcohol that is used to actually wet and form the bath fizzy. You'll see more about that in a minute when I do the live demonstration. And finally, you've got some cosmetic grade colorant to make your bath fizzy blue, some raffia, and of course, some beautiful bath bomb labels so you can make these for gifts if you'd like. So let's get started. You got 2 parts baking soda to 1 part citric acid. So if you're ever making this project again, the basic recipe is 2 cups of baking soda to 1 cup of citric acid. Add both of these powders together and then work them through with your hands so that way you can see if there's any clumps. If you have any clumps in your mixture, what ends up happening is you get little kind of white spots in the mixture that don't look good. Or, and here we have our first question from Monica in South Carolina. She says, I've made bath fizzies before and I get little warts on them. What are those little warts, those little things that are growing up from the bath fizzies? So Monica, 1, it could be due to inadequate sifting. It could actually be these clumps that are kind of sticking out. Or 2, it could be after you add your fragrance oil, sometimes if you haven't mixed in fully enough, that fragrance oil really can make little warts or little unsightly bumps form in your bath fizzy. So just mix better. When I used to make bath fizzies in pretty large batches, I actually used a mixer. So we're talking like a stand mixer, like a KitchenAid stand mixer, and that really helped get those clumps out. After you've mixed fully and you've gotten your clumps out, go ahead and separate out your bath fizzy mixture into 2 different containers. And just a little word, if you have really sensitive nasal passages or deal with asthma or anything, you might consider wearing a mask while you're doing this because the baking soda is fairly free-flowing and it can kind of poof into the air and irritate nasal passages. We're eyeballing this, but it ends up being about a 1.5 cup to 1.5 cup. And second, you notice I'm not wearing gloves. So if you're making this for sale and you're doing good manufacturing practices, you are definitely going to be wearing gloves. Or if you'd like to save your nail polish, you're definitely going to be wearing gloves. The citric acid causes kind of a scouring effect, and so it'll take off kind of the end part of your nail polish. I have to actually change my nail polish tomorrow, so I'm not too worried about it. And also, I like to feel the mixture in my hands kind of so I can really feel that texture. So you can do between 4 and 8 milliliters. That's about a dropper and a half full to 2 droppers full of the fragrance in each side of the bath fizzy. So about 16 milliliters total for a very strongly scented bath. Just work that fragrance in, mix out the clumps. And then we're going to add our colorant, which is that Cellini Blue Mica colorant, just about 1 gram. It's a cosmetic grade colorant that's commonly used for coloring eyeshadows and lipsticks. Just add that to the side, one side of your bath fizzy. And also, just a note about the molds and the packaging that came along with your kit. You'll notice there's a male and a female, or an innie or an outie. So make sure when you're using this that you're doing the innie and the outie together, not 2 innies or not 2 outies, not 2 males, not 2 females, because then they end up not being able to stick together and package really nicely like this one has packaged. Witch hazel. So you need a wetting agent in order to get your bath fizzy mixture to stay together. You could use water, but what would happen if you used water is that the fizzing reaction starts prematurely, and that's no fun. I have seen at one soap gathering back in the Midwest a few years ago, I did see one person using water to get her bath fizzy mixture to stick together, and I could never manage to actually duplicate it. So I use witch hazel. You could also use an oil. And if you use an oil, I like to use 1 tablespoon of oil per cup. So you would do 3 tablespoons max for this entire recipe. And the reason I tend not to do too much oil is because it makes the tub slippery and it makes the tub difficult to get out of. Now, if you really love a very moisturizing bath though, a little bit of oil does go a long ways in here. And you could, for example, melt some shea butter and drizzle it in, olive oil, sweet almond oil. Those would be great wetting agents. So right now I'm doing kind of the pinch test. So it's where you squeeze it, and if it stays together, the mixture stays together, it's ready to go. It's staying together over here. So let's check our white side. And it needs a little bit more help here. So I'll just do a few more sprays of witch hazel and make sure that it's wet enough. Too wet and it gets sticky and it's difficult to work with, and too dry and it doesn't form together, but that's perfect. So I'm going to grab my male side, drizzle a little bit of white in, drizzle a little bit of blue in. Perfect. Drizzle a little bit more white in, kind of mound the middle with that white. And then I'm going to move on to my next side. So this guy, which is my female side, a little bit of blue, a little bit of white, and I'm going to mound the blue up in the middle. And then once I've got my blue mounded up in the middle, and I'm working pretty quickly here, because once you get this nice and wet, you don't want it to be, you don't want to wait too long, or else the entire thing starts taking on moisture from the environment and gets a little bit too wet, and it actually starts clumping together in your bowl. So then you do the squeeze, core up, squeeze together, kind of mash the 2 sides together, and then let it sit. I don't want you to unmold these right away. Also, just a note, if you're working without gloves like I am, if you have any little cuts on your fingernails, you're going to be super sad pretty soon, because you will feel that citric acid, which is that kind of lower pH, just really worming its way in to your cuts. I want to do a little bit of Epsom salt. So if you're going to make this at home in the future and you're like, you know what? I really want to try something different. You showed me the basics. Let's do something different. A little bit of Epsom salt is great. I'm just going to kind of put it in the top here and then put some blue. The blue will really help it to stand out. And again, filling it all the way up, making sure I have, this is my female, making sure I'm grabbing a male, filling it up with blue, pushing it down, packing it in. That's pretty important because you want these bath fizzies to last in your tub. And then squishing it together. And this one is really pretty looking with the Epsom salt at the top. It's got really nice contrasting colors. Push the 2 sides together. And then I'm going to let that harden up. And I think maybe for this one might be fun is seeing if I can find, I've got some lavender stashed over here. So I'm gonna do a little bit of lavender in the top of this one. A little bit of lavender. And I think maybe just a little bit of white then in the top, because that'll really allow the lavender to stand out. Lavender is great for relaxation. A lot of people use it for its kind of relaxing and sleep aid properties. And so in the bath, it's great to add to that relaxing effect. And then some other things you can put in your bath fizzies are things like clays. You can also do, you can do some food items like grind up some oats in your food processor and do like an oatmeal bath fizzy mix. The main thing to keep in mind is if you're doing that, you really want to make sure that you are doing about 2 parts baking soda, 1 part citric acid, and then 1 part whatever additive you're doing. So you don't want to dilute the mixture too much with whatever additive you're doing. I'm going to do a little bit more lavender, and this time I'm going to go with the lavender and the white and the blue again. And it looks like we have another question coming in from Marcy. Marcy from Georgia. She's asking about using fragrance oils and essential oils. Can you mix them, and kind of what are the safety questions? That is a really good question, Marcy. So yes, you absolutely can use fragrance oils and essential oils, and you can mix them. But I do want to caution you, since this is a product that's going into a bathtub that's warm water, warm running water, you want to make sure whatever you're doing is going to smell subtle enough that it's not going to irritate any nasal passages. So make sure you're staying within basic safety guidelines. So for example, in this recipe where we have the 2 cups of baking soda to 1 cup citric acid, we're really recommending that you stick to about 16 milliliters total of fragrance and essential oil. And if you're using essential oils, make sure you're following all safety guidelines for those essential oils. Nothing that might be troublesome for pregnant women or anything like that. But there's no issues mixing a skin safe fragrance oil and a skin safe essential oil together. You absolutely can do that. That's a great question. Just make sure to keep it within that 16 milliliters for this particular recipe. Is there another question, Courtney?
Yeah, so we have a couple questions regarding the witch hazel quantities and humidity and why they sometimes explode too soon.
Oh, witch hazel quantities and humidity. So one of the things that is really frustrating when you're making bath fizzies is what works one week won't work the next week, right? Because you had a big rain event in your area and all of a sudden there's humidity all over the place. And now your bath fizzies are either drying not fast enough, or they're drying too fast, or they're getting really big and puffy. So the key is just to use enough witch hazel so that the entire mixture just barely holds together, like I showed you, but isn't really very, very, very sticky. So for example, here, this is the mixture that I've got now, and it's just barely sticking together. So it makes this little dough ball, but it's not terribly stable yet. So what I use for my witch hazel is not going to be what you use for your witch hazel if you say live in Florida. It really depends on where your area is. But the key is to check it frequently and make sure that you are kind of stopping as soon as you've gotten to that point where the bath fizzy is sticking together and you can kind of mound it nicely with your hand. If it gets too wet, it's gonna, once it's sitting there, it'll go choop, 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 and kind of grow, which is a little bit frustrating. Any other questions right now coming in, Courtney?
So what are some other colorants that you can use for bath bombs?
This is a really good question. Very smart of you to ask. What are some other colorants that you can use for bath fizzies? So first of all, only use skin-safe colorants. So do not, like, for example, use crayons and grate them up and put them in your bath fizzies. Only use colorants that have been approved for bath fizzies. Dry colorants work the best. Dry colorants that are water soluble work even better than oil soluble, and you want to know why? I don't know about you guys, but every so often, if I haven't cleaned my tub, say, I don't know, yesterday, there can get to be an oil ring around the tub. Oil soluble colorants like oxides or pigments will actually cling to that ring, which is super irritating. So if you're using a water soluble pigment, it will not cling to that ring, which is really nice. And also they're easier to clean off in general when you're trying to clean your tub. If you have a porcelain tub or an old tub from whenever porcelain tubs were created that's cracked, you can really actually stain or dye the tub, especially if you're using oxides or pigments. La Balm colors from brambleberry.com are specially formulated to work in bath fizzies. They're FD&C, food, drug, and cosmetic grade colorants that have been added to liquid glycerin so that the liquid glycerin helps to keep that fizzing reaction down. Remember, we don't want to use anything that's water, so you can use those as well. So any powdered colorants work if it's water soluble, like a mica, bonus, or the La Balm colorant. So that's a great question. And I want to show you guys, especially if you've never seen this fizzing reaction on camera, what a fizzing reaction looks like. They're really fun. My kids, of course, love it. Whee! And the citric acid is a food grade product. The sodium bicarbonate is a food grade product. My little 1.5-year-old took a big spoonful last night when we were making bath fizzies together. And other than the fact that it tasted terrible, it's totally fine. And there you have it. And cleanup is pretty easy. You just have to wet a towel down and kind of just clean up. And then it fizzes and it makes a really fun smell. And cleanup is a snap and you're all done with that. So unmolding these guys, once these have sat for a while, you can definitely unmold them. So this one I made a little bit earlier and it is totally shut. Like you can send this anywhere and it's not gonna come apart. But they're super easy to unmold once you've made them. You just kind of twist off the top and then you have your bottom and then you tap, tap, tap to get that top out, kind of push down. And then we have the bath fizzy that I made earlier.
So this is a good question and perfect timing, Anne-Marie. How long do you have to leave them to dry before you can ship them or give them away? Or
Sure. How long do you have to leave these to dry before you can ship them, give them away, whatever? So that's a personal preference thing. I did a DIY bath fizzy station for my sister-in-law's baby shower. And by the time everybody was done, which was about an hour from start to finish when people were kind of done making it and leaving, these were definitely hard enough for them to transport. And within 12 hours, they were that kind of rock hard, oh, that's actually not coming apart without a little bit of effort. So I'd say you can, within 24 hours, pack them up, ship them out, you're good to go, especially if they're in these protective containers and you've fully like sealed them using the channel. If you've kind of partially sealed them, like I've done with a few of these ones, like this is the one I just made a few minutes ago with the lavender, they'll just pull right out. But as soon as they've gotten really hard after about 24 hours and expanded just a little bit, they're a little bit harder to get out. So 12 to 24 hours is kind of your ideal. If you're using a different bath fizzy mold like these guys, these are kind of more industrial bath fizzy molds. And with these guys, I actually make the bath fizzy, squish it together, and then pull off the top and let the whole entire thing sit between 1 and 3 days before I try and pull it out. And that's because these guys are so big. You know, this is an 8 ounce to 9 ounce bath fizzy that it just takes a little bit longer for it to dry out compared to these kind of smaller ones. Okay, so you guys, I am around on Twitter, on Facebook, on Kickstarter. If you have any questions, I want to hear them. I definitely want to see your finished creations after you made them. You make me giddy every single time you post one of your bath fizzy projects or your finished soap products and say, hey, I did this, it worked really well. So make sure you tag us, make sure you hashtag us, because I really want to see your successful Handmade Beauty Box projects. So until next time, I can't wait to reveal next month's surprise. Happy soaping and thanks for joining me.